Welcome and thank you for joining us today for Why Should Organizations Consider Extended Detection and Response? My name is Raleigh Gould and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Our featured speaker is Chris Steffen, VP of Research covering Information Security, Risk and Compliance Management at EMA. Chris brings over 25 years of industry experience at EMA, focusing on IT management, leadership, cloud security, and regulatory compliance. He holds several technical certifications, including Certified Information Systems Security Professional and Certified Information Systems Auditor, and was awarded the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional Award 5 times for virtualization and cloud and data center management. And before I hand things over to Chris, I wanted today's audience to know that he will be wrapping up his presentation by taking your questions. Feel free to log them anytime by using the Q&A functionality. Also, today's event is being recorded and you will receive a follow-up email from EMA with the recording and additional resources. So please check that email out. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our featured speaker, Chris Steffen. Chris?
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for attending our webinar today. I think you're going to find it interesting. It's not a what you would call a terribly long webinar, but I think the topic is going to be really interesting to a lot of people. I wanted to first kind of shout out to the sponsors of this research, Anomaly and IBM. Both have great XDR solutions that are worth taking on and having a look at. We'll talk a little bit more about what makes a great XDR solution here at the end. In fact, to be honest with you, it was the whole purpose of this research to begin with, is to really get a handle on what customers and what vendors were calling XDR and, trying to come up with a cohesive definition. With all the people that we talked to, that was really the end goal, is to figure out what is this XDR stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the research methodologies and the demographics that we ended up using. So when it was all said and done, we only included in the survey about 240 different responses. I think, and Raleigh could tell me for sure, but I think that we finally pulled like just under 1,000, and we used the 240 that are here. We always take and do a lot of certification of our responses just to make certain that, none of them are robots. And, again, you have a lot of AIs that are out there taking surveys nowadays. So I actually feel pretty good about these results. They're in line with what I was expecting. And we want to make certain that when we're presenting this information that you're getting things that are, somewhat based in reality. So the two demographics I always talk about, what is the best role? Again, you see a lot of IT directors there, a lot of, senior executives from VP of IT and CIO, and a lot of IT managers. And then obviously the whole gamut of other types of people there, from, your business analysts to your developers to your, regular help desk people down there, even at the bottom. All of them obviously have an opinion on what XDR is, and it's kind of good to get some of those opinions. And then here on the right, you see that what organizations that we talked to. A lot of manufacturing in this one, but as you can see, we had, well over a dozen different kinds of verticals. I always try to make certain that we're not pulling just from one place. Sometimes you get really heavy in one and it kind of skews the results. We had a really good cross-section, really no more than about 15 or 20 responses from any one particular vertical. So again, really kind of good information, really good cross-section with really good results. So to kind of get into it a little bit, I wanted to talk specifically about XDR in the enterprise. And if you've been to a conference, you know that, for example, I was at RSA. I spoke at RSA earlier this year in April. And if you went on the show floor, you saw that there was probably, and again, without exaggerating, probably 50 to 60 vendors out there claiming to have the next great XDR solution. I'm here to tell you that there aren't 60 or 70 XDR providers that are worth a dang. The good news is that we're going to talk about what some of them work out and make the most sense. We'll also talk about which ones don't make sense. But There's definitely capabilities that I think are critical when you're talking about XDR, and there's things that are kind of nice to have, and there's things that probably either are table stakes or just don't matter because they all have them in one form or another. There's also other research that's out there too. I know that some of the other analyst firms have conducted their own research. Don't just take our word on it. I mean, I think that we're a pretty authoritative expert when it comes to this, but look at some of the other firms and what they say about XDR and the future of XDR, really also how it relates to, SIM solutions, and we'll get into that here in a minute as well. But there's a lot of information out there, and when you finally get all this information and come together, you can get a good definition. The very last slide of this presentation is what I believe is a cohesive definition, but use that definition and apply it to some of the other vendors that you're seeing, some of the other research that you're reading, and kind of try to make your own decisions. At the end of the day, that's all I'm really interested in, is trying to empower the user, the listener, the viewer of this research to be making informed decisions about XDR. So a couple things here. Is your organization looking into XDR? And the answer was yes, overwhelmingly so, with 60% saying, that they are, currently using it. Another, 40% there, or almost 40%, were in the process of looking to implement it one way or the other. One of the interesting facts was, is an XDR solution replacing your SIM solution? 81% said yes, which is very, very interesting. And I'd like to talk about that for a quick moment. This is not a shot at SIM solutions. SIM solutions have their place in the environments. I think that a properly maintained, implemented, and administered SIM solution is actually invaluable. And if you are the size organization that can staff accordingly and implement accordingly, a SIM solution, again, provides great insight and allows you to do some great things. What I have found through this research is one of the primary reasons that companies are looking to replace their SIM solution is mainly around staffing. It's very expensive. You usually need a team to be able to maintain and update that SIM solution. And there's a pretty good chance that you're not using all the capabilities that come with your SIM solution if you're a small to medium-sized business anyway. Therefore, an XDR solution a lot of times is providing those capabilities that you would get with some of the most basic parts of a SIM solution, and you're doing so at a much lower overhead than you would over SIM. Again, I can't stress enough, there are great SIM solutions out there. If you need recommendations on SIM solutions, jot me down a question and we can talk about that too. But don't think that XDR is going to be the ultimate replacement to SIM. They both have their place in the market. I think that a SIM solution, source solutions, really do offer advanced and additional capabilities outside of what XDR. But if you're at a maturity level that you can't necessarily maintain or implement an XDR solution or a SIM solution completely, then maybe an XDR solution is the right solution for your environment. So coming to this next slide, which technology products do you expect from an XDR platform? Again, as you saw, that many of them are looking to replace their SIM solution. They want their XDR platform to be a glorified SIM solution. No real surprise there. The one that was a little bit surprising here was that threat detection wasn't higher in this particular question. Again, no surprise. Extended detection and response being up there as well. Again, none of these are very surprising in the grand scheme of things, but it does speak to the fact that people are looking to replace their SIM solutions with some kind of XDR solution when it's all said and done. Primary use case, and this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. So they're looking for XDR to be able to improve the detection of advanced threats. Great. That's what, in theory, and we'll get to this at the definition, that's in theory what kind of that X means, right? You can already detect, you can already respond. I need to have some advanced analytics and detection on some of these threats and how you're going to be able to deal with some of those kind of things. I also thought that tool consolidation was interesting. I providing automated response, I think, is very interesting. You're going to see that number continue going up as some of the advances in AI continue to improve. But again, obviously taking and having a way to improve detection, I think, was a primary consideration for most organizations when they're talking about XDR in general. As you saw in the previous one, a lot of people are looking at SOAR and automation capabilities. And so it's worth taking and talking about, what some of those capabilities actually are. Enrichment and provisioning, obviously some kind of customized playbooks and visualizations. Those are all things that are very, very important to have from an orchestration, a SOAR solution, whatever have you. Obviously, they want their XDR solution to be able to provide some of those capabilities. Many of the XDR solutions do have the ability to do those things, but your mileage may vary. It is definitely, when you're taking and doing your proof of concept, finding out what the orchestration capabilities are in that XDR platform is critical, because they don't necessarily perform as a SOAR or a SIM solution necessarily would. So it's important to know that. Same thing here down with automation capabilities. Reporting is an obvious one. Repetitive task, again, is an obvious one. Having low code automation, I think, is very important. And being able to have the visualizations and alerting, that's also very important. Again, we listed about 20 capabilities for each of these, and these are the ones that came up on top. Again, none of these are really a surprise. As all of these platforms continue to mature and rev and so on and so forth, you're going to see more of these automation capabilities continue to be implemented in the XDR solutions. These are all, I think, kind of baseline. I think that you'd be hard pressed to find an XDR solution that doesn't do these things to at least some degree. But again, as I mentioned with the orchestration, when and if you do a proof of concept, it is worthwhile to ask these questions and to confirm that if you have a particular need for, low code automation or a particular visualization that you're looking for, it's perfectly reasonable to ask the vendor, not only do they have that, if they don't have it, can it be customized so that you could have that? Again, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes. Assuming that XDR is the evolution of EDR, which I think that we can all agree that it is, which XDR capabilities, appeal to you the most? Having that advanced analytics is way up there. Simple visualization of complex attacks. One of the constant problems that I'm hearing about EDR in general is the lack of visualizations. Again, I think it's getting better, and I think it's going to continue to get better, but it's going to get better on the XDR front more than the EDR and NDR front, just because I think that's where more companies are spending, their integration resources to try to understand. So you're going to have an automation and an XDR, a detection and response dashboard for all intents and purposes. And then all of your various feeds will come into there to give you the visualizations that you need to be able to do the things that you need to do. Again, very important to kind of see what they're looking for: automated cross response capabilities. And of course, the one at the very bottom here that everybody wants is, to reduce the number of false positives, but also to make certain that incidents are being escalated to the right level, so that the junior technicians can handle quote unquote junior type things and let the senior people concentrate on things that are much more at their pay grade, if you were, when it's all said and done. A constant problem in security, constant problem in IT in general. But again, XDR has the ability to kind of democratize some of these things, and it will help with them. So it is worth mentioning and checking out when you're evaluating an XDR solution, if they have those kind of capabilities, to make certain that it solves the problems that you're looking to solve. Now we're kind of getting into some of the soup of it all, right? What are the most important function and capabilities in an XDR solution? Obvious one right off the bat is ease of use. Every survey that we do at EMA, when we ask a question along these lines, security people are always looking for things to be relatively easy to use. You want something that you're going to not only be able to administer, manage, and deploy quickly and easily, but that you're going to immediately get results and that you don't need a team of 700 to be able to manage. Mainly because nobody has that kind of luxury of having that kind of, resources to be able to manage it. And mainly because, again, at the end of the day, being a security guy myself, I can tell you that the least amount of brain damage, and as we all know, brain damage is a technical term, the least amount of brain damage that you can have, the better. And so whenever possible, taking and having your XDR or security tool in general being able to be easy to use is critically important. Understanding the intelligence, again, you shouldn't have to take and use a third party or a fourth party, in this case, resource to go understand what a particular attack looks like. That should be inherent and native to the XDR solution. You obviously want zero-day attacks to be automated and understand, and you want to be able to unify all of those threat hunting capabilities into one dashboard. Again, all the other ones are pretty obvious too. None of these are the wrong answer. And again, when you're taking and talking to, and I think we, again, had 20, 25 capabilities here. Here's the top 10, 12, whatever the number it is. And these are all things that most XDR solutions should have. But if your XDR evaluation doesn't include a response to these, you really should question them. They should be able to respond and give you an answer to where these rank on their list of roadmaps, or at least of features within their product. Conclusions. I know that we kind of zipped through that, and I please take an opportunity right now before we get into the conclusions to post a question. I'm happy to answer questions, happy to have a conversation and a discussion here. I'm not one that sits there and reads charts to people, because that's what you can go download the report for. You'll get a link to the report when it's all said and done. And always happy to engage with you after the fact on that account as well, through LinkedIn or whatever have you. 3 takeaways that I really want you to get from this webinar and the report. Organizations are always looking to update their security tools, and they're looking to XDR solutions as a potential way of consolidating these tools. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of cost that comes with security tools. If you can take and find an XDR solution and can either augment or supplant a lot of these solutions at about 1/3 of the cost, your security leaders and your business leaders have to pay attention to that. It's something that is obviously, when you can save $1 here and there, that's something that you need to be able to do as a security team. Second of all, the SIEM and SOAR capabilities and threat detection capabilities are the most important. Not a real surprise there. Again, many organizations are looking to replace their SIEM and SOAR solutions with XDR. So it stands to reason that the XDR solution is going to want to embrace a lot of these capabilities. That threat detection thing, that's the X in XDR, in my opinion, and understanding how the XDR platform that you're evaluating deals with advanced threats, I think is a critical path. They're not all created equal. Some of them are outsourcing it. Some of them are going to a third party. And we can talk a little bit about that, in question and answers here, whether there's a benefit one way or the other. But just keep in mind that how it deals with SIEM capabilities, how it deals with your SOAR automation, orchestration, how it deals with threat detection and response is absolutely critical in whatever XDR solution that you evaluate. And when you are talking with the sales engineer, the sales team, don't let them out of the room until you are satisfied with those answers. Lastly, easy use, zero-day threats, better reporting, complex analytics, and automation are all critical parts of XDR. There's no question that those are capabilities that we're all looking for. They all need to be able to provide advanced insights into what's going on in your organization and the threat landscape. They should be constantly updated, constantly defined, constantly being able to provide insight on what's going on, 0 days, so on and so forth. And if the XDR solution cannot address those core capabilities, then it's probably time to evaluate something else. As I mentioned when we started, there's a lot of XDR solutions that are probably not really worth the 3 letters that make up their name. Make certain that you don't get taken for a ride. Make certain that you are finding a leader that can address all these core capabilities. Finally, when it's all said and done, We came up after all the people that we polled and all the vendors that we talked to, which was about 60 or 70 vendors. This is the definition that is a relatively definitive definition for XDR that we're sharing with the whole world. Extended detection and response, or XDR, is a cybersecurity solution that integrates with your existing and future security and operational tools. Again, no surprise there. Provides in-depth insights and reporting to technicians and decision makers. By the way, it's not just enough to have a tinfoil hat version of the dashboard. It's great that you're taking and having that kind of visibility, but then upstream, when the boss's boss needs to understand what's going on, you shouldn't have to be playing the translator. The tool itself should be able to provide a dashboard to your lay decision makers that can kind of help them understand what's going on without having to get a whole lot of insight from the technician. Third, it streamlines security operations across all of these different spaces: user endpoints, data network, cloud resources, applications, and other workloads. If it doesn't do all of these things, not just some of these things, all of these things, again, look for a different XDR solution. Any XDR solution should work across cloud. It should work for all your applications. It should work for all your various workloads. It should work with all your various endpoints, and it should be able to analyze and protect all your various data sources. And then lastly, it applies analytics and automation to detect, analyze, hunt, and mitigate threats. That's kind of the X part of XDR. When you look at this definition in general, again, kind of wordy, kind of comprehensive, but at the same time, I think it's a worthwhile definition when you are evaluating an XDR solution, that it meets everything that's part of this definition. If it doesn't, go on to the next guy. With that, I wanted to save about 5 minutes here, 5-6 minutes, to answer any questions that you might have. I know that we have a few in the queue, and I hope that this has been useful. You all have the ability to get a copy of the report. If you also have other questions, you can always ping me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer questions that way, or send me an email, or we can even arrange a phone call. So again, I'm happy to do these things and put you and give you some better insights if you're looking something specifically for your environment. With that, Raleigh, what kind of questions did we get?
Thank you, Chris, for those wonderful insights. Let's jump into the questions. The first one is, organizations with compliance regulatory needs will not be able to replace their SIM. So how does one enable XDR capabilities to existing SIM environments, bolt on SOAR and other stuff?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I know that even that regulatory landscape is changing. You still need to have a solution that is going to address some of those core SIM capabilities. A lot of times it's going to take a little bit of effort to talk to your audit team about what that particular, what's the particular capability that they're looking for, right? Is it something, SIM and only SIM? Is it something that is, truly just event management, whatever have you? And it's going to depend. It's going to depend on your vertical. It's going to depend on your auditor. And all those are great. I mean, again, none of that's a complaint. That's pretty standard. All I can honestly say is that depending on your environment, depending on what you're using the SIM for and what have you, is going to depend on how well you're able to take and use an XDR solution to replace a SIM or SOAR solution. And then the XDR solution that you pick has to have the capabilities that you're looking at to replace your SIM solution with. Not a great answer, but I know that the truth of the matter is that it really is going to depend on your environment and your auditor. And again, that's a great question. If you want to hit me one-on-one, we can definitely have that conversation. We can go more in depth.
Great. Thank you, Chris. The next question is, there are plenty of companies that claim to have threat detection capabilities. Is it better to get a standalone threat detection solution or to get one integrated into an XDR platform?
Yeah, great question. The simple answer is that I'm never going to shoot anybody about how they integrate. Some of these solutions, there are expert threat detection solutions that are out there, and I highly recommend those. Again, in fact, both of our sponsors, both IBM and Anomaly, have some of the best threat hunting capabilities that there are in the market. You would do well to be able to integrate with either of those. It really depends on the level of integration. I will just be very candid and say that if they don't have native threat hunting capabilities or threat definitions libraries and whatever have you, their integration needs to be super, super, super tight, or it may not be what you're looking for. A lot of these companies are kind of just saying, well, yeah, we'll pull whatever, public sources there are there, and we'll give you whatever information that we can come up with, and you'll live happily ever after. I'm here to tell you that's probably not enough. They really do need to have invested in those capabilities, how those capabilities are going to be addressed, how they're going to be dealt with within their solution, because having something that is, for lack of a better term, a secondary thought when it's all said and done is truly just that. And then you got to ask yourself, what are you paying for? If you're not really getting the kind of solution that you want, then you're paying for somebody's, afterthought. Well, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. So I would argue most of the time having native capabilities, it will just give you the peace of mind that it probably makes the most sense. If they have a really, really tight integration with, a threat detection provider, then maybe it does work out. But I would guess more often than not, you're probably looking for something that a threat detection, threat hunting solution that's going to be native to the solution.
Thank you, Chris. Let's take one final question. Why the shift from SIM? Is SIM not the right solution?
Wow. That could be a conversation an hour all by itself. The very simple answer is SIMs are really, really, really good at what they do, and they actually continue to get better at what they do. The last thing that you're going to hear me do is bash a particular SIM solution. I don't think it's worthwhile to do that. I will tell you that SIM solutions probably are not for everybody, depending on your maturity level, depending on your organization, depending on the size of your organization. I'll give you again a very simple example, and I'm not picking on any one vendor in particular. I was able to recently attend the Splunk conference. Splunk is literally the Cadillac of SIM solutions, and they're outstanding. I mean, don't make any question about it. They have capabilities that, even a decade ago, you could never even dream of that kind of solution existing, much less being available to the public. But they will also be the first to tell you that it's very, very difficult to for a small to medium-sized business to utilize all the capabilities of their solution. That's okay, because I don't know that they're really planning on a small to medium-sized business on utilizing all the capabilities of their solution. So they're taking and trying to do things that make it more available to the public and what have you. But my point is that you could maybe not be at a maturity level in your security journey that you require a SIM solution, and maybe an XDR solution is the better path for you. And then maybe you graduate to a SIM solution, because again, the SIM solution does provide interesting and valuable feedback that other solutions just really can't do at this point. So not the greatest answer in the world. We can take and go into that at length too, if there's interest there, and happy to do so. But again, I think it's more based on the maturity of the organization than anything else, and not a value of a particular tool over another. They both have their place. It's just that one is the better solution for some organizations compared to other organizations.
Thanks, Chris, for taking all those questions. And I wanted to thank our audience for joining us today. As I mentioned, you will be receiving a follow-up email from EMA, so be sure to check that email out. And I also hope you'll check out the solutions offered by the research sponsors, Anomaly and IBM. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope we'll see you at a future EMA research webinar. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.